At 11:42 p.m., a nurse stood in a quiet hospital corridor and said 6 words to a police officer that no one wanted to
Officer,
hear.
the
"He
patient is
is going to
stable
hurt
now.
someone."
He is going to
The
hurt
officer
someone.
wrote it down, filed it, moved on to the next call. 11 weeks later, that warning would be the only sentence anyone in Brookhaven could remember clearly because by then it was already too late. This is the story of Caleb Reyes, a name nobody outside one small town had ever heard before the night everything changed. A name that, by the end of this video, you will not forget. But to understand how a community missed every sign, we have to go back. Back before the warning, back before the anger, back to a boy who, by every account, used to be gentle, because that's the part that still haunts the people who knew him. He didn't always seem dangerous. That's exactly why nobody stopped him in time. Caleb Reyes grew up on the edge of Brookhaven, a small town where everyone claimed to know everyone, and yet, as it turned out, almost no one really knew him at all. His mother, Linda, raised him mostly alone after his father left when Caleb was 7. Neighbors remember a quiet, watchful boy who kept to himself but was never unkind. A former elementary school teacher described him as the kid who'd give you his lunch if you forgot yours. That detail matters. Remember it because it becomes important later. In high school, Caleb was unremarkable in the way that makes the story unsettling in hindsight. Average grades, a handful of friends, no arrests, no fights, no red flags anyone thought to write down. He worked part-time at a hardware store. He dated a girl named Megan Pierce for almost 2 years. Friends say he lit up around her, the kind of happiness that made people assume his life was finally going somewhere good. But somewhere in that ordinary picture, something started to shift. Slowly, quietly. The kind of change that's nearly impossible to notice until you're looking backward, trying to find the moment it began. Nobody could pinpoint the exact day Caleb started to change. But one person noticed before anyone else did. And she worked in the last place you'd expect a warning sign to surface, a hospital emergency room. The first sign came 8 months before the warning. Caleb was brought into Brookhaven General after a minor car accident, nothing serious, a sprained wrist and a cut above his eyebrow. The kind of visit that's forgotten within a week. Except one nurse never forgot it. Her name was Diane Caldwell, 15 years in emergency medicine. The kind of nurse who had seen thousands of patients and learned to read a room in seconds. She remembers Caleb being polite at first, calm, almost too calm for someone who'd just been in a crash. But when the doctor was 20 minutes behind schedule, something in him changed. He didn't yell, Diane would later recall. It was worse than yelling. His voice went flat, cold. He said, "People don't realize what happens when you push someone too far." At the time, it sounded like frustration, a stressed-out patient venting in a busy ER. Diane logged it as an unusual interaction and moved on to her next patient. She had no way of knowing this sentence would replay in her mind for the rest of her career. This was only the beginning. 3 months later, Caleb came back. This time, it wasn't a car accident. He arrived with Megan, his girlfriend, after what was reported as a minor fall at their apartment. Megan had a bruise along her jaw and wouldn't make eye contact with hospital staff. Diane was on shift that night too. She noticed the way Caleb answered every question before Megan could speak, the way he stood between her and the nurses, arms crossed, watching, the way Megan flinched when he reached for her hand. Diane had seen this pattern before. Every ER nurse has. When she finally got a moment alone with Megan, she asked the question nurses are trained to ask quietly, "Are you safe at home?" Megan said yes. Then she asked Diane not to write anything down. Diane respected the request. Hospital protocol requires consent for certain reports, but she documented her concerns internally and flagged the file. It was the only thing she legally could do. She would later say this was the moment she knew, not proof, not evidence, just a feeling that something in that relationship was already broken in a way that wouldn't heal on its own. What she didn't know yet was how quickly things were about to escalate. The third visit changed everything. Caleb arrived alone, agitated, with what hospital staff described as explosive energy. He'd had an altercation with a coworker at the hardware store, a shouting match that ended with him putting his fist through a supply closet door. He wasn't
An
arrested.
officer was called
No
as
one
a
was
precaution.
seriously hurt. But an officer was called to the hospital as a precaution while Caleb's hand was treated.
I know what really happened.
This is the night Diane said the 6 words that would later define this entire story. She approached the responding officer in the hallway, away from Caleb's room, and said it plainly,
He is going
to hurt someone. The officer asked if she had evidence of a
Do
specific
you have
threat.
evidence of a specific
She didn't
threat?
nod in the legal
Yes,
sense.
I do.
What she had was 15 years of pattern
wasn't
recognition. A nurse's intuition built on thousands of patients who'd shown the same warning signs before something terrible happened. It wasn't enough. The officer thanked her, noted it informally, and left. There was no formal report, no follow-up, no flag in any system that would connect this moment to what came next. Diane went home that night feeling like she'd failed at something without being able to say exactly what. She had no idea that within weeks her warning would become the most important sentence in a police investigation. In the following weeks, people closest to Caleb began noticing the same shift Diane had seen in flashes at the hospital. Co-workers said he grew irritable over small mistakes. Friends said he stopped returning calls. His mother, Linda, later told investigators she found him sitting in his truck outside the house at 3 a.m., engine off, just staring straight ahead.
Everyone keeps
When
pushing
she asked
me.
if he was okay, he reportedly
One day
said,
I'm going to push back.
"Everyone keeps pushing me. One day
She
I'm
thought
going
he
to
meant
push
his
back."
job.
She thought he meant his job. Megan's friends noticed changes too.
This detail
She started
becomes
canceling
critical
plans
later.
last minute. She stopped posting on social media. When friends asked if everything was okay with Caleb, she'd changed the subject. Looking back, psychologists who later reviewed the case described this pattern as consistent with escalating control and isolation, a slow tightening of a relationship until the people inside it can no longer see out clearly. This detail becomes critical later because isolation doesn't just trap victims, it also hides warning signs from everyone who might otherwise intervene. By the time Caleb made his next hospital visit, the pattern Diane had been tracking for months was about to reach its breaking point. It happened on a Tuesday evening in early autumn. What exactly triggered it is still debated even now. People close to the case disagree on the small details. What's certain is the outcome. Neighbors
heard
reported hearing raised
followed by
voices
a
from the
heavy
apartment
crash.
Caleb shared with Megan, followed by a heavy crash, followed
Then
by
silence.
silence. A 911 call came in at 8:53 p.m. The caller was Megan herself, her voice shaking, saying only one
He
sentence
snapped.
before the line went dead. He snapped. When police arrived, the scene inside the apartment was unlike anything responding officers expected from a routine domestic disturbance call. We won't describe every detail here. Some things are better left for the official record than for a video, but Megan was rushed to Brookhaven General in critical condition. The same hospital, the same emergency room, the same nurse on shift that night. Diane Caldwell was the one who received her. She would later say that of everything she witnessed in 15 years of emergency medicine, nothing prepared her for
That's him,
recognizing
the
the
one I
patient
warned you
she'd
about.
warned police about months earlier, now standing in handcuffs in the same hallway where she'd first said his name to an officer who didn't listen. Detective Frank Mercer caught the case that night. His first
Building a
move was
timeline,
standard procedure:
talking to
build a
witnesses.
timeline, talk to witnesses, pull any prior reports connected to either party. That's when he found it. A single, informal note buried in a junior officer's old shift log dated 11 weeks earlier, a hospital nurse expressing concern about a patient named Caleb Reyes. No formal complaint, no charges, just 6 words that in hindsight read like a prophecy nobody had taken seriously. Mercer brought Diane in for an interview. She walked him through everything: the car accident, the bruise on Megan's jaw, the punched-in supply closet door, the warning she gave that went nowhere. "I want to be clear," Mercer would later say in a press briefing. This nurse did exactly what she was supposed to do. The system failed to act on it, not her. Security footage from the hardware store incident was pulled. Co-workers were interviewed. A clearer picture began forming, not of a sudden, unpredictable act of violence, but of a slow escalation that multiple people had noticed in pieces without ever connecting those pieces together. The investigation was no
Every
longer
missed
just about what
opportunity that led
happened
to
that
it.
Tuesday night. It was about every missed opportunity that led to it. When detectives sat down with Caleb, his demeanor surprised even experienced investigators. He wasn't combative. He wasn't evasive. According to those present, he answered questions in the same flat, controlled tone Diane had described from that very first hospital visit. At one
Did you
point,
know
Mercer asked him
this was where
directly,
things were heading?
"Did you know this was where things were heading?" Caleb reportedly paused for a long moment before answering, "I think part of me always knew." That single sentence would later be debated extensively by both prosecution and defense. Was it an admission of
Why didn't anyone
premeditation or
act
the words
sooner?
of someone recognizing, only in hindsight, a pattern he never knew how to stop? Physical evidence collected from the apartment, combined with the documented hospital incidents and witness statements about Caleb's escalating behavior, formed the backbone of the
The
prosecution's
defense
case.
argued undiagnosed
The defense would
mental
argue
health
something
issues.
different, that Caleb was struggling with undiagnosed mental health
Think
issues that
part
were
of
never
me
properly
always
addressed,
knew.
and that the system that failed to act on Diane's warning also failed to get him help before it was too late. Both arguments, in their own way, pointed to the same uncomfortable truth: the warning signs were there. What happened next would depend on what the people around him and the systems meant to protect everyone involved chose to do with them. This is the question that haunted Brookhaven long after the arrest. Why didn't anyone act sooner? The answer, according to experts who later reviewed the case, is rarely simple. Diane's warning lacked a specific documented threat, the legal threshold required for formal police action. Megan's reluctance to confirm abuse meant hospital staff couldn't file an official report without her consent. Caleb's mother saw warning signs but interpreted them as job stress, not danger. Co-workers saw anger but assumed it was a bad week, not a pattern. Each person held one piece of a puzzle. No single piece on its own looked like enough to act on. This is the tragedy of pattern-based warnings, one criminologist explained afterward. Intuition built over years of experience is real and valuable, but it's incredibly difficult to act on within a system that requires hard evidence. Diane herself
Nobody
put it more
ignored me
simply in a
because they
later
didn't hear
interview.
me.
Nobody ignored me because they didn't hear me. They ignored me because nobody could imagine he'd actually do it. That sentence would go on to define the entire case in the public eye, and it's worth sitting with because it applies to far more than just this one story. The trial drew significant local attention, with Diane Caldwell called as a key witness for the prosecution. On the stand, she repeated the same 6 words she'd said in that hospital hallway nearly a year earlier. This time, the entire courtroom was listening. The defense didn't dispute her account, they couldn't. Hospital records and the officer's informal note both confirmed the timeline. Instead, they focused on context: Caleb's lack of prior criminal history, his cooperation with police, and what they argued were unaddressed mental health struggles. After a trial lasting several weeks, Caleb Reyes was convicted on charges connected to the assault. Megan survived her injuries, though her recovery, physical and otherwise, was long and difficult. She did not speak publicly during the trial and has largely stayed out of the spotlight since. In the aftermath, Brookhaven General Hospital reviewed its protocols for reporting suspected domestic violence and escalating patient behavior. Diane Caldwell's case became part of training materials for new nurses, a real-world example of why pattern recognition matters and why systems need better pathways for acting on professional intuition before a tragedy, not after. For Diane, the recognition was bittersweet. "I don't want to be known for predicting this," she said. "I want the next nurse who notices something to actually be heard." The nurse's warning wasn't ignored because people didn't hear it. It was ignored because nobody could imagine he would actually do it.
It still lingers.
That's the
over
part that still
Brookhaven.
lingers over Brookhaven, long after the courtroom emptied and the headlines faded. Not the violence itself, but the quiet, ordinary moments before it. The punched door that wasn't reported, the bruise that wasn't confirmed, the late-night truck sitting in a driveway that nobody thought to ask about twice. Diane Caldwell still works in emergency medicine. She still trusts her instincts, and she still believes that somewhere between a professional's warning and a system's response, there has to be a better way to listen before it's too late. Caleb Reyes is
Caleb is
currently serving his sentence.
sentence.
Megan Pierce has rebuilt her life away from the town where it happened. And the 6 words a nurse said in a hospital hallway. 6 words nobody believed are now taught to new nurses as a reminder that sometimes the people who see danger first aren't wrong. They're just early. So we'll leave you with the same question investigators, nurses, and the people of Brookhaven have been asking ever since. Do you think this could have been prevented if someone had listened to the nurse sooner? Let us know in the comments below.